morning, everyone, and welcome to the Namaste Center. Today is the 26th of August, 2012, and it's wonderful to be here with each of you here, those of you that may be watching on the internet, and of course our wonderful guests today, Ken and Loyd Kinnett, and we are in for quite a journey today. Ken has been an Episcopalian priest for a number of years, and he actually has just continued to expand and be a searcher and seeker of truth, and we're just grateful to have him as a part of our spiritual family here at the Namaste Center. And of course, Loyd has been the wind beneath his wings here, I'm sure, and has been a wonderful seeker and teacher as well to me. And we're just so grateful to have you here today, so welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yes, we were glad to have you. And we actually had a lot of fun with you on the radio the other day.
Yes, that was good.
We missed you, but we'll do it again. And I want to move on to this book, Beyond the Affair. We'll just jump right into it, The Healing of a Marriage. And it really is, I recommend everybody take time to read this, even if you're not married, it doesn't matter, because it's the greatest gift of this book is really, regardless of what happens in a relationship with a commitment that you all made, the healing is not only possible, but makes it even greater and stronger.
Or it could even be something other than an affair. It
Right.
could be any time that you've been at a place where you feel shattered. It could be the death of a child. It could be the loss of your home. Sometime when you have to start all over again.
Exactly.
So for us, it just happened to be an affair.
Yeah, it just happened to be that. Well, that's right.
2 by 4.
and I do want to get into this, but I don't know how I didn't recognize this in the first time I read this book, but Desmond Tutu gave you all an endorsement here, which says that this is a powerful piece of writing, so raw and so authentic, and so marvelously real, I could almost hear Loyd's gasps and sobs, catch a smell of her dogs, and feel the atmosphere of her cave. This is remarkable work. So that is beautiful. So how did you score Desmond?
He was teaching at Emory University in Atlanta,
Oh, wow.
and we requested it from several people. He's the only one that responded.
Really responded. I just happened to think I might know some of his gatekeepers. And as it was, he was out of town. They left every piece of message on that cell phone, on their telephone that I needed to know, including his email.
Wow.
So it was like,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, good, and that's such a powerful statement and so true. I mean, he just wrote so beautifully that it is raw and authentic and real. So I know that Ken, you and I were talking earlier this week, and you said that you both had decided to reread the book.
Yes.
And it was not easy for you.
Not for me. It was painful.
Yeah, it was. And why was that?
Well, when Loyd realized what had happened, and I admitted it quickly, and I decided that whatever she needs to say, whatever pain she needs to express, her anger, anything, that I was just going to take it and listen to her.
well, I think the other piece was, too, that he took full responsibility for his part.
Oh, yeah.
And that was huge.
It wasn't one of those things.
It wasn't an accident.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was, I want to read your introduction because it is so beautiful, and it says, this book may come to a surprise to some of our friends and relatives. It's taken courage for me to sit down and write it, and enormous courage for Ken to support me and urge me on. Surprise or not, its time has come. What is in this book needs to be said, not just for healing of my part, although that is enough of a reason to write it, but also for those of you, men and women, who sit with the pain of what you think you know, afraid to uncover your spouse's love affair. Or perhaps the affair has been uncovered, and you decided to stay together, manage, carry on, with everything changed and nothing changed, wanting it to be different, but afraid, and it will always be the way it is now, and hopeless. I know that fear. I also know there's another way you can live your life other than sit with your pain and fear. It takes work, furious work. You can move forward even though you believe the change isn't within your reach. This is a book of hope, hope for those who want to have a relationship but believe it's been completely broken by an affair. You may be right. Then again, you may find the affair to be an opportunity that would not have come along without the affair. New possibilities are within your reach. Working together, you can have everything either of you have ever wanted. And this book is a testimony to that, and your life is as well. And that reminds me of a quote from A Course in Miracles that says, everything is for your own best interest, even the stinky stuff.
Yeah.
So it's...
Even the stinky stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was definitely stinky stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the gifts that was given to me as a child was to see everything as a gift. And so even when I had no clue as to how this was going to turn out or how I was going to survive, because there were periods of time when I didn't think I was going to make it, that there is a gift there somewhere. And if you hang on long enough, maybe you can begin to pull the cords and open the wrapping paper and it will appear. So that takes time and hard work.
And I recommend you don't try to do it by yourself. We had a wonderful therapist in Knoxville, Tennessee that we saw twice a week. And the drive to and from was helpful too.
Yeah, we decided to slam dunk it.
Yes, well, good for you.
We decided if our relationship was really going to thrive and be important to us, then we were going to give it everything we had. So we had 2.5-hour drive over to Knoxville, 2.5 hours back, and 2 hours with our therapist twice a week.
Yeah, and he wasn't somebody that's, a
Yeah.
very active therapist. He would get up and write on the newsprint, have us role play and things like
He
that.
was a jewel.
Really helpful.
He is a jewel.
So you, Ken, you were you a priest at that time?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, he was retired. I mean, he's
Well,
retired.
even so.
But he was a
But
priest.
I went to see my bishop. I needed to let him know. And his concern was that it didn't have anything to do with the parish. And thankfully, I wasn't in a parish. And it didn't have anything to do with that.
So have you been able to forgive yourself for that?
You know, I was thinking about that 2 days ago, and I think reading the book brought it all back up to me, and I realized I hadn't fully forgiven myself, but I have now.
Mm-hmm. And Loyd, what about your thoughts on forgiveness? Were you able? How long did it take before you could forgive Ken?
Well, it's interesting because I would have thought that would be the last frontier would be to forgive Ken. He was such a rat, you know. So how in the world am I going to forgive him?
Yeah.
Whatever. And because we decided to stay together and not go our separate ways and work this out, we stayed together, and which was perfect because I couldn't imagine working through this without my best friend. I mean, he's my best friend. I didn't want to pick up the phone and call him and say blah, 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 or whatever. But it was almost easier to forgive him. It was the woman who I had the difficulty in
Well,
forgiving.
tell them what your belief in forgiveness was at the time.
What was my biggest?
That you thought that if you forgave somebody, you had to be their best friend.
Oh, yeah. That's what with my I'm a Southerner, and we're supposed to be friends to everybody. And that was my great fear with the other woman was somehow I had to make her my best friend. You know, I had to stay in relationship with her. And, you know, that's not true, but that's where I was. So for Ken being with me all the time and working with me, the forgiveness part was rather like a spiral. You know, I would move up and pause and move up and pause. But, and when I really got that it was a process, I kept thinking it was going to be like this. And for some people, forgiveness is like that.
Once in a while it's like that, but usually it's a process.
It's a process. And I got to a place where I felt like I had arrived. And I trusted that if there was anything else I needed to forgive, it would jolly well appear, and I would deal with it. So it wasn't so hard with Ken.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, it took me quite some time to handle the other woman.
Yeah.
But there was a reason for that.
Yes, well, there you go. What was the reason?
The reason was that when I realized that she was standing in for every woman who had ever hurt my feelings, betrayed me, ignored me, didn't love me. So she was carrying a heavy load. And when I got that, I also wrote the most, I guess it was 6 pages back and front, a letter to her that let everything out that I have been having these conversations
When
with
you
her
wouldn't want to
about.
publish, huh?
No, it wasn't. The U.S. mail.
Yeah.
But it was also part of the freeing, and that I think caused me to realize, she sounds a bit familiar. And when I got that, I've got chilly bumps. When I got that, I realized she even had my own face.
Wow.
So it was huge, huge.
Yes, you saw her as you.
Yeah.
So, there's Marianne Williamson, one of my favorite quotes from her is, "Just because I forgive you doesn't mean we have to have lunch." And
That's something that Bishop Tutu says.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
He says, in fact, I pulled it out and I wish I had brought it with me, but he's the one that gave me permission for her not to be my best friend. That we all know, and when we're in our right mind, that we have boundaries we need to set, particularly with some people we bump up against. And it was like, duh. I got that in a way, but Bishop Tutu really, I have a chapter in which I talk about him as being the great reconciler.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that opened the window for me.
Well, another thing about forgiveness is that when we're holding unforgiveness or resentment or grievance against somebody, we need to realize that as long as we hold on to that, the only person who is hurt by it is us. The other person may not even know it, that we have a resentment against them or a grievance.
Yeah, someone said, holding ill will, the only will that's ill is yours.
I like that. That's great. So your therapist, he was a hands-on guy, like you said. He wasn't just someone who sat back and just
Right.
Stroked his
listened.
beard.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So what did he hammered down on you guys pretty good, huh?
Yes, well, the course that we teach to couples, and we're going to do part of that this afternoon, is based on what we learned from him.
Yeah, he was one of these people that jumped up, and if you could see him, he's like 6'4", so he looked like 2 midgets working with him. So he would jump up, grab the newsprint, write down what he's hearing and seeing. And he did a lot of exercises that were, for me, very difficult, because it meant I had to raise my voice. And it was like, but I'm a Southerner, we don't raise our voice. I mean, it was really, really hard. And he did challenge and push us, and thanks be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at one point he put a chair in front of you that represented the other woman, and you were to have a discussion with her and then change places and see like what it would be like to be her.
I mean, it was like, say what?
Oh my gosh.
But it was emotionally, physically, I mean, spiritually, it was incorporated it all. And genius, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Genius.
Exactly.
Which brings me back to what Ken says. You just cannot do this alone. You really need support, and support that's going to be in your face, holding your feet to the fire. And with that, without all that, I don't know, maybe have taken us forever if we had ever gotten to the end of it.
Well, did you ever feel like you were going to give up? I know he gave you all a timeline.
Yes. No. And when he gave us a timeline, 6 months ahead, and I said, well, what if Loyd, it's too much for her and she decides to drop out? He said, oh, no, you can't drop out. You can do anything you want to, but you can't stop until we get to September, whatever the date was.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a brilliant idea
Yes.
to set that, yeah.
Yeah, it really, because in the back of my head, one of the things that he asked us is, what is your purpose in coming? And one of my purposes was that if we decide to go our separate ways, that I wanted it to be mutual. And how in the world were we going to do this? And he said, oh, that's my territory. And in deciding a time, a date, it really kind of took a piece of my brain that was worrying about it, thinking about how we're going to do this. And I could just turn it over to him. And as he said, I could walk out, I could do all kinds of things, but the decision wouldn't be until 6 months from then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple of other things that stand out. We went to a number of bookstores around the southeast and had signings, and at one of them in Chattanooga was a woman like the preface described, that her husband had had an affair, they'd never dealt with it, and she was very, very bitter. And the other thing was, we did a lot of radio interviews about the book, and one man with his station said, but you're a minister. I said, yes, I know, so we talked a little more. But you're a minister, we talked a little more. But you're a minister. I said, yes, but we are human,
Yeah.
Well, and you said something I thought that was really important, which was, I am cut from the same cloth.
Same cloth, right.
And I thought, oh, that really says it. I mean, he really could not let that go.
Right,
And
yeah.
I can understand that. We put ministers up on pedestals only to watch them fall off and be human.
Mhm.
And then we can yakety yak about them. But it's true. I find Ken talking about the bookstores, I had so many hilarious experiences, and primarily boarders at the time. My favorite being this woman. Ken is sitting next to me behind a table, and our book is there. And usually people saw the title and made a U-turn.
Didn't attract him very much.
But this woman leaned forward and said, honey, does your husband know you wrote this book? I said, yes. Did she buy the book? No.
Well, so now, this, how many years ago was that? That was 25 years ago, right?
Gosh, I don't know.
It was-
And truly, that's the nice thing. We were married 37 years, and we're now in our 56.
Okay.
So however many years.
Congratulations. 19 years ago.
19 years ago,
Yeah.
yeah.
So now you've moved on, and you feel like your marriage is stronger than ever.
Well, the beauty of this, I think, and see if you agree, I think the work that we did made it so clear that secrets are killers in a relationship. And we have put everything we could think of on the table.
Yes.
And gotten one by one clear of them. And I think when there is, like, there's no thing between the two of us, then that really allows you to soar. You don't get hung up in something that you're holding way back in there. And I think that makes a huge difference.
So it's really transformed into a holy relationship at that point.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
it has.
Exactly.
Sure.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the affair and the marriage, but how can this work in just relationships in general? We all have relationship issues.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And we have relationship issues. I mean, we didn't take the pill that cured you from being, never getting upset with each other.
What do you mean pro tandem doesn't do
No,
that?
but it sure does make you feel better. I think it works. I think what we teach is tools. And that's one of the things that's missing in our upbringing. We don't teach relationship skills in
No.
high school. We only have our parents' example, and sometimes that is not a good example. So we're never taught tools. You can go to a therapist and you can say, you know, we are just terrible communicators. We just do terrible. So does he teach you how to communicate? No. So
Well, some do.
that's the emphasis that we make, is teaching tools. And I think,
And that's what we're gonna do this afternoon.
yeah, recognizing you're in deep yoga, you need to stop and look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna teach a tool you can use for the rest of your life in all your relationships.
I grew up believing that to avoid conflict at all costs, you know, it was grin and bear it, it was ignore it and it will go away, lots of luck.
Right.
But I thought, you know, in my mind that worked. Little did I know it was percolating, and what we would see from me is little leaks of a little jab here and a little sarcastic thing here, or whatever. It is there and it will leak out. And the more that you can look at it as something that is highlighting a problem you need to address, the better you are. And I think, as our workshop is, hope and health go hand in hand. I was not ill a single day during all of this, and I think it's because I was working so hard at getting my emotions out. Poor man. You know, but
Yeah, it was tough at times, but I
he
was
stood
determined to
there
take
and
it.
took it. So, and when I say took it, he really heard me, and I knew I'd been hurt.
Well, so what would you, some partnerships, one partner may not want to even bother.
Right,
So lots of luck.
pretty hard.
It's
Yeah.
very hard.
Although the other partner could, you know, to get in therapy and deal with whatever her or his issues were, but in that case, the one partner may grow so much that they get a divorce because the other one hasn't grown at all.
We see couples sometimes who come to us who one wants the other one fixed. And we don't fix. And we have literally sent them home, given their money back and said, you know, work with a therapist. We're not therapists. We're people who have been through everything a couple can go through, other than the death. We have many times in our children's lives, we have nearly lost them through accidents, but we have not dealt with the death. But, you know, that's, our job is to teach you tools so that anything that comes down the pike, you can handle. We teach the tool, we model the tool, and then we step back and watch you heal yourself.
And that's gratifying, I'm sure.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
it's
very good.
wonderful.
Yes, it is.
It's take off your shoes, you're on holy ground.
There you go.
It's fabulous.
They check into your house for the weekend, right?
That's
Right.
right.
Usually we have a couple stay with us Friday and Saturday night through breakfast Sunday, and then if there's some unresolved things, we go longer on Sunday.
We feed them, and I love them.
That's wonderful. So do you have anything else you want to add to this before we open up for questions?
Well, for those who plan to come this afternoon, we'd like for you to have in mind a relationship you'd like to work with.
Okay. As far as the book is concerned, I think there are a number of important things that I'd like to point out. One was a huge shift for me was realizing that it wasn't Ken's affair, it was our affair. And
That doesn't mean I wasn't responsible, I was.
no, but, you know, it takes two to tango. And what part was mine in that was invaluable for me to uncover.
Wow.
And the other part was that though the other woman isn't my best friend, we do have a relationship. And the end of the book talks about that in a very powerful way. And then Ken writes the last chapter.
And when you said that, I realized it's our relationship. Our therapist said, "You got it right. You know, that's it." And then at one point I said, "You know, I think I have a psychotic break." He said, "Bingo." And you add to that the addiction of sex. It, you know, it really takes something to break it.
Yes.
But the other woman was presenting to me an idealized picture of myself.
And you, her.
Right.
So here I am thinking, what chance have I got? You know, new, exciting, mysterious, meeting. What, you know, I'm old hat. So that was part of my pain of realizing, you know, I'm old stuff. I'm history to him rather than being present and the future. So, you know, it's my spiritual journey, but as I said, it could be anything. It could be any time when you felt like you needed to put the pieces back together again.
Well, you all did a remarkable job and you're great models of what's possible. So thank you all for the journey and the book. How can people get the book if they want the book?
They can go on Amazon and they can buy one
You have a few back
today.
there.
And of course, the shipment that I ordered didn't come in and will be in next week. So I'll
Okay.
bring some next week as well.
So if they go, the listeners online, go to Amazon.com. It's called Beyond the Affair by Loyd, L-O-Y-D, Kinnett, K-I-N-N-E-T-T. You all also have a website.
Yes, Kinnett.com.
Okay, so people can go there. So does anyone out here have a question?
This is not a question. This is just a statement. I've known these two for 5 or 6 years now, and they have been two of the most important people in my life because they've helped me realize that I'm perfect just the way I am, and they've helped me through some of the BS that we all accumulate over time. And they just have been priceless in my life. And I hope that one day I can have a relationship like theirs because of how well they just work together. And it's amazing. They're really amazing people, and I'm glad to have them in my life.
Jake, and I remember one thing you said was that y'all say thank you to each other all the time.
You said thank you to the computer.
Yeah. I have never heard any couple thank each other so much and just be on the page so much of the time.
That's one of the things I think that it comes from age. I do think the older I have become and the older Ken has become, that one of the important things is profound kindness. Because that, along with that, is respect, is integrity, but profound kindness, I think, is a big piece to growing old together.
Indeed. Well, sure is. Oh,
Question, and it's two-part. One is, do you think that early upbringing was a primary influence in how the two of you initially reacted? And the second part of that question is that perhaps just an excuse for how you manifested?
Say the first part again.
Well, how much does your early raising, your early upbringing, how much do you think that influenced the crisis that developed between the two of you? And as you worked through things, did you eventually see that as not being a problem, or that it was pivotal to how you?
I don't think it had anything to do with it.
You do or don't?
I do not.
You don't.
I don't. I mean, I was 18, Ken was 21 when we got married. Our upbringing was similar, but it was a different world when we've been married 37 years, a whole different world. For instance, it never occurred to me to kick him out of the house. Whereas back in the early part of our marriage, having an affair would be it would be a deal breaker. It never occurred to me at the age of 57 of kicking him out of the house. So
Although friends advise you to do that.
sure, yeah. I mean, that's just the knee-jerk reaction, I think. But no, I don't think it had to do with our upbringing. I think what had to do with our being together was that we deeply loved each other, had been around each other, and done a lot of work.
Yes, we had dealt with a
Around
lot of problems,
relationships.
both in therapy and outside of therapy. We had learned some tools ourselves.
Yeah. So, in our case, it might be very different for somebody else.
And Ken, you pretty much agree with that, or do you have
Yes,
anything to add?
I sure do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think my upbringing with my parents had anything to do, well, shaped the person I was to a certain extent, but we had learned so much as adults about relationships, being in therapy.
I mean, it really was a whole different way of looking at things by the time we were married, maybe even 25 years. And just a different way of being in relationship, of actually telling each other the truth. I can remember,
Heaven forbid.
how long it took me to tell Ken as a young married how much I hated football. I went to those football games until I just can't stand this anymore. So after years, I finally told him. Yeah, that wouldn't be the case now. The truth is the truth is the truth now. But back then, we just tried to do, take care of my man, make sure he had food when he came home from work. Now he's
Not a
lucky
bad
if he eats
deal,
out of
either.
the refrigerator.
So Deb, you had a question.
I'm just wondering, how realistic do you think it is to be married for 50 or 60 years and not have an affair? I think that, because you grow as people and not always along the same, and sometimes you have some good years and sometimes you have some bad years, and usually, you're getting married when you don't even know yourself.
Exactly.
I think it's pretty rare nowadays.
Yeah.
Percentage-wise, you're right on. It used to be that it was by far the percentage were that men were having the affairs. Now the women have caught up with them. If you go and look statistically about what we know, of course there's lots of things they have not figured out, but that's one of the things I did some research on when I wrote the book. So what can I say? It is a different world.
And I think if you find you're growing apart from your partner, got the grabbies, that's what I used to get before preaching sermons. That you invite them to, get into therapy with you and say, there's some things that we need to work out, and I'll be glad to tell you what I think they are, but I think we need a third party to help us out here.
Good advice. Well, we got
Ken, I was wondering if you could say more about your work in forgiving yourself. It sounds like you did some good work with that.
Okay. Well, every once in a while I would read the first chapter over where Loyd is thinking about the possibility of suicide. And that would really get to me. And I thought I had forgiven myself until reading the book all the way through again, realizing how much pain I had caused her. Enormous. It surprised me at the time, and it still surprises me now, although you don't feel it anymore. But, so I was blaming myself for everything. And, I intentionally did this, I didn't just fall into it. I intentionally did this. And but until I forgave myself, unless you can forgive yourself, and I can forgive myself, it isn't total forgiveness. It isn't thorough.
Well, and I think you can forgive yourself to a point, and it feels done. And then read the book again, and some more of it comes back up to deal with. And I think that's true. It doesn't have to be, it could be anything, forgiving your neighbor for running over your dog. You know, you forgive to a point, and then you do the best that you can do, and that's doing the best you can do. And then later, up it pops again, then there's more work to do. And you did it that time, you can do it again.
That's a good question, thank you.
Do you think it would have made any difference in the course of things if it had been Loyd who had the affair? If it had been different, you know, the opposite?
Yeah, it would have been different, but I think we would have handled it the same way.
Yeah, that's really, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, it's just given the roles of, you know, the gender-identified roles some 20 years or so ago. They've changed
Right.
drastically
Right.
last 20 years. I wonder if you would have had the same outcome.
I don't know. I know that the part of my learning was that I grew to the realization that, you know, Ken could do this again. The one thing that I know is I won't be shattered. I know that I may be furious and hurt, but I won't be so furious and hurt to the extent that I was in the book. And I know that I will be fine. That I will be fine.
Well, and you said something about trust.